The sound of gunfire was supposed to be familiar, but standing at the entrance to Range 7 at Fort Carson, the same range she had walked across thousands of times over 12 years, Master Sergeant Claire Donovan felt her chest tighten with something that wasn't quite nostalgia, wasn't quite grief. It had been 4 years since she'd last stood here, 4 years since the IED in Ramadi. 4 years since she'd lost her right arm below the elbow and walked away from the only job she'd ever loved. She was 42 now. Her dark hair, pulled back in the same tight bun she'd worn in uniform, showed streaks of premature gray. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, boots, and a burgundy-red range vest over a black t-shirt. On her right side, where her forearm should have been, a titanium and carbon fiber prosthetic extended from just below her elbow to a 3-fingered mechanical hand. Claire flexed the fingers experimentally. They responded smoothly, myoelectric sensors, translating the electrical impulses from her residual muscles into precise mechanical motion. It still felt wrong. It would always feel wrong. But it worked. She took a breath and walked through the gate. Range 7 looked different, newer. The old wooden shooting stations had been replaced with steel and concrete structures. The target systems were automated now, electronic controls, instead of the manual pulley systems she'd used. Even the red flag system had been upgraded to digital displays. Progress, she supposed. Though part of her missed the old range, the one she'd helped design when she was a young sergeant fresh out of the Army Marksmanship Unit. She walked toward the range tower, where a man in his early 30s stood reviewing a clipboard. He wore the same burgundy-red vest she did, range safety gear with Range Master embroidered across the back. "Excuse me," Claire said. The man turned. He had the clean-cut look of someone who'd never missed a regulation haircut in his life. His name tape read, Patterson. "Range is closed for maintenance," Patterson said without really looking at her. "Opens at 0800 tomorrow. I'm not here to shoot. I'm here to see Sergeant Major Blake." Patterson glanced up, his eyes immediately catching on her prosthetic arm. His expression shifted, not quite pity, not quite discomfort. Something in between. "SGM Blake is at the admin building. I can call him if—" "Claire? Claire Donovan?" The voice came from behind the tower. A moment later, Sergeant Major Marcus Blake emerged, a bear of a man in his 50s, with a graying beard and eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Claire felt her throat tighten. "Hey, Marcus." Marcus crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled her into a crushing hug. "Jesus, kid, 4 years. You could have called. You could have written. Something." "I know. I needed time." Marcus pulled back, holding her at arm's length. His eyes dropped briefly to her prosthetic, then back to her face. "Liar. Okay. You look like you haven't slept in a week, but still. Good to see you." Patterson cleared his throat. "SGM. Do you know this person?" Marcus's smile faded. "This person. Lieutenant Patterson is Master Sergeant Claire Donovan. She built this range, ran it for 8 years, trained over 3,000 soldiers in marksmanship. She was the best firearms instructor this base has ever had." Patterson's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I didn't realize." "Why would you?" Claire said quietly. "I've been gone a long time." "Not that long," Marcus said. He turned to Patterson. "Give us a few minutes?" Patterson nodded and retreated toward the tower. Marcus guided Claire toward the nearest shooting station. They sat on the bench, looking out at the range, at the targets downrange, the berms beyond, the mountains in the distance. "So," Marcus said, "what brings you back?" Claire was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I was driving through Colorado. Thought I'd stop by. See the old place. Bullshit. Claire smiled despite herself. Okay. Maybe I needed to see if I could still do it. Do what? Shoot. Marcus studied her. You've been shooting with the prosthetic, right? Therapy? Training? Some, but not. Not like this. Not on a real range, with real targets and real distance. And you want to try? I don't know if I'm ready. Kid, if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be here. Aight. Years earlier range, 7 didn't exist yet. It was just a patch of scrubland behind the main training area, flat, featureless, perfect. Sergeant Claire Donovan, 30 years old and fresh off a 2-year stint at the Army Marksmanship Unit, walked the land with a surveyor's tape and a notebook. 300 meters to that berm, she called out to Marcus, who was 20 feet away with his own measuring tape. Good backstop. Natural elevation. You sure about this? Marcus asked. Building a range from scratch is a hell of a project. I'm sure. Fort Carson needs a precision rifle range. Somewhere we can train snipers, designated marksmen, advanced shooters. Right now, everyone's using the basic qualification range. It's not enough. Marcus joined her, looking out at the empty land. And you think you can design it? I know I can. I spent 2 years at AMU learning from the best shooters in the Army. I know what works. I know what doesn't. Marcus smiled. Then let's build it. It took 6 months. 6 months of surveying, planning, pouring concrete, installing target systems, building berms, planting grass. Claire was there for every step, arguing with contractors, correcting mistakes, adjusting angles. When it was finished, Range 7 was state-of-the-art. Variable distance targets from 100 to 1,000 meters, steel, paper, and reactive targets, multiple shooting stations, covered positions, open positions, everything a serious shooter could want. The first qualification held on Range 7, Claire stood at the 300-meter line with an M4 rifle and put 10 rounds through a target the size of a dinner plate, all 10 hits. Dead center. Marcus handed her a beer afterward. You built yourself a damn good range, Donovan. We built it, Claire corrected. Nah, this is yours. You're the range master now. Claire looked out at the range, at the thing she'd created from nothing but dirt and vision. She'd never been prouder of anything in her life. Present day. Claire? She blinked, pulling herself back to the present. Marcus was watching her with concern. Sorry, just remembering. Good memories? The best. Marcus stood. Come on, let's see what you've got. Marcus, I don't know if... Stop. You came here for a reason. Let's do this. Claire followed him to the tower. Patterson was inside, reviewing range logs on a computer. Patterson, Marcus said. We're going to run a few shots. Can you set up targets at 300? Patterson looked up, his eyes immediately going to Claire. Says GM. Is she qualified to shoot on this range? She built this range. I mean, currently qualified. With the... He gestured vaguely at Claire's prosthetic. Claire felt her jaw tighten. I'm not currently in the Army, so no. I don't have active qualifications. Then I can't authorize her to shoot. Regulations? Civilians need proof of training and current certification. Marcus's voice hardened. Lieutenant... It's fine, Claire said quietly. He's right. Regulations are regulations. Bullshit, Marcus said. She has more experience than anyone on this base. I'm sure she does, SGM, but I can't make exceptions, especially with... Patterson's eyes dropped to the prosthetic again. With adaptive equipment. There are safety protocols. Claire felt heat rise in her chest, anger, humiliation, frustration, all tangled together. Adaptive equipment, she repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling it? I didn't mean, you think I can't shoot because I have a prosthetic arm. I think, Patterson said carefully, that firearms operation requires fine motor control and bilateral hand function. I'm not saying you can't shoot. I'm saying that on this range, under my authority, I need to see proof of capability with your current configuration. My current configuration, Claire said, her voice dangerous now, has been shooting for 4 years. I can field strip, clean, and reassemble an M4 faster than most of your instructors. I can load magazines, clear malfunctions, and engage targets at distances you've probably never even attempted. I'm sure you can, ma'am. But regulations, fuck your regulations. The words came out before she could stop them. Marcus's eyes widened, Patterson's face flushed. Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated, but you don't understand anything, Claire said. She was shaking now, rage, grief, 4 years of buried pain all bubbling to the surface. You stand here in this tower on this range that I built and tell me I'm not qualified? You think losing my arm erased 12 years of experience? You think it makes me less capable? I think, Patterson said, his voice cold now. That safety is my responsibility, and I'm not going to compromise it for someone who wants to prove a point. Claire stared at him. Then, without a word, she turned and walked toward the exit. Claire, wait. Marcus started. It's fine. I shouldn't have come. She was halfway to the parking lot when Marcus caught up with her. Kid, stop. Don't let that asshole. He's not an asshole. He's following regulations. And he's right. I'm not qualified. Not anymore. That's bullshit, and you know it. Claire stopped walking. She looked down at her prosthetic hand, at the mechanical fingers, the synthetic skin, the thing that would never be her real arm no matter how advanced the technology got. Marcus, what am I even doing here? I left. I walked away. I built a new life. Why am I trying to prove I can still do something I'm never going to do again? Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. Because you need to know. Not for me. Not for that kid in the tower. For you. You need to know that you're still you. Claire's eyes burned. What if I'm not? Then you'll deal with it. But you don't know until you try. They stood there for a long moment. Then Marcus's radio crackled. SGM Blake, this is Colonel Martinez. I'm at the tower. Patterson says there's a situation. Marcus and Claire exchanged glances. Marcus keyed his radio. On my way, sir. When they got back to the range, Colonel Edward Martinez, Fort Carson's Range Operations Commander, was standing with Patterson, reviewing paperwork. Martinez was in his 50s, with iron-gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent 30 years making difficult decisions. When he saw Claire, his expression shifted. Master Sergeant Donovan. I heard you were here. Claire straightened instinctively. Sir. I also heard there was some disagreement about range use. Sir. With respect, Patterson interjected. Regulations clearly state. Martinez held up a hand. Lieutenant, I'm aware of the regulations. I wrote half of them. He turned to Claire. Sergeant Donovan, I reviewed your file when I took command here 3 years ago. You have one of the most impressive marksmanship records I've ever seen, expert qualification on 14 different weapon systems. Army Marksmanship Unit. 3 deployments. 2 Bronze Stars. And you built this range. Yes, sir. Do you believe you can still shoot with your prosthetic? Claire hesitated. I don't know, sir. I haven't tried on a military range since my injury. But you've shot recreationally. Yes, sir. Pistol mostly. Some rifle. Short distances. Martinez nodded. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to personally authorize you to shoot on this range, under my supervision. If you demonstrate safe weapons handling and acceptable accuracy, you'll be cleared for future range use. If not, we'll discuss alternatives. Agreed? Claire felt her throat tighten. Sir, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but you built this place. You earned the right to shoot on it. So let's see what you've got. 10 minutes later, Claire stood at the 300-meter line with an M4 rifle in her hands. It felt strange, familiar and alien at the same time. Her left hand gripped the magazine well, naturally muscle memory from thousands of hours of training. But her right hand, the prosthetic, felt clumsy on the pistol grip and trigger. She'd practiced this. Spent months in physical therapy learning how to manipulate the prosthetic's fingers with enough precision to pull a trigger without jerking the gun. It worked. She knew it worked. But knowing and doing were different things. Behind her, Colonel Martinez, Marcus, and Patterson watched in silence. A small crowd of soldiers had gathered. Word had spread that something unusual was happening at Range 7. Claire ignored them all. She focused on the rifle. On the target downrange, a silhouette at 300 meters, barely visible in the afternoon light. She chambered around, flicked the safety off, settled the stock into her shoulder. Iraq, 2016. A rooftop in Ramadi. Her rifle warm from the sun. Target 400 meters away, an insurgent moving through an alley toward a Marine patrol. You're clear to engage, her spotter whispered. Claire exhaled. Her real finger, flesh and bone, tightened on the trigger. The shot was clean. Target down. Good shot, Range Master, her spotter said. Just doing my job, Claire replied. The memory dissolved. Claire refocused. She lined up the shot, controlled her breathing. Her prosthetic finger found the trigger. She felt the resistance, 2 pounds of pressure, then 3. Then the rifle cracked. The recoil pushed into her shoulder. Downrange, the target pinged. Hit. Claire didn't move. She chambered another round, fired again. Hit, again. Hit. She fired 10 rounds, 10 hits, all center mass. When she finished, she safed the rifle and turned around. The crowd of soldiers was silent. Patterson's mouth was slightly open. Marcus was grinning like an idiot. Colonel Martinez stepped forward. Outstanding shooting, Sergeant Donovan. Claire set the rifle down carefully. Her hands, both of them, were shaking now. Not from exertion, from something else. Relief, pride, grief, joy, all of it at once. Thank you, sir, she managed. Martinez looked at Patterson. Lieutenant, I think we can safely say Sergeant Donovan is qualified to use this range. Patterson nodded slowly. Yes, sir. I apologize, Sergeant. I made assumptions. I was wrong. Claire looked at him, at this young officer who'd followed the rules because rules were all he had to hold on to. You were doing your job, she said. I respect that. Still, I should have listened. Marcus stepped forward, clapping Claire on the shoulder. That, he said to the assembled soldiers, is what a real shooter looks like. Adaptive equipment, prosthetic arm, 4 years. Out of practice doesn't matter. Skill is skill. The soldiers applauded. Claire felt her face flush. All right, show's over, Marcus said, waving them away. Back to work. As the crowd dispersed, Claire sat down on the shooting bench. Her adrenaline was crashing now, leaving her exhausted and slightly dizzy. Martinez sat beside her. Sergeant Donovan, I have a proposition for you. Sir? We need instructors, good ones, experienced ones, people who know how to teach, not just shoot. Would you consider coming back? Not active duty. Contractor position. Teach marksmanship to our advanced students. Claire stared at him. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready for that. You just proved you are. I proved I can shoot. Teaching is different. You taught for 8 years before you were injured, and from what I've read, you were exceptional at it. Claire looked out at the range, at the targets, at the mountains beyond. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. 3 months later. Claire stood at the same 300-meter line, but this time she wasn't alone. 12 students, soldiers selected for advanced marksmanship training, stood behind her, watching as she demonstrated proper trigger control. The key, she said, her prosthetic hand steady on the rifle, isn't strength, it's consistency. Every shot should feel exactly the same grip, same pressure, same breathing pattern. She fired. The target pinged. You'll develop muscle memory. Even if your equipment changes, she gestured at her prosthetic, your fundamentals stay the same. One of the students, a young private, raised his hand. Ma'am, how do you adjust for the prosthetic? Claire smiled. Same way you adjust for anything. Practice, repetition, and accepting that some things will be different, but different doesn't mean worse. She fired again. Another hit. Any other questions? Silence. Good. Line up. Let's see what you've got. As the students moved to the shooting line, Marcus approached. You're a natural at this, kid. I'm terrified, Claire admitted. Every day. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not as good as I was? You're not as good as you were, Marcus said. Claire looked at him, hurt. You're better, he continued, because now you know what it's like to lose everything and have to rebuild. That makes you a better teacher. These kids, they need to see that. Claire watched her students preparing their rifles, saw their focus, their determination, their hope that they could be as good as the instructor who just put 10 rounds through the same hole with a prosthetic arm. Yeah, she said quietly. Maybe I am. 6 months later, Range 7 had a new sign at the entrance. Master Sergeant Claire Donovan Marksmanship. Range Claire stood looking at it, Marcus beside her. You didn't have to do that, she said. Colonel's idea, I just agreed with him. It's too much. It's not enough. Marcus looked at her. You built this place. You made it mean something. And now you're back, making it mean something again. That deserves recognition. Claire reached out with her prosthetic hand and touched the sign. The metal was cool under her mechanical fingers. 18-7 was a doll added for Rext. Hey, Marcus? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Kid, you never gave up on yourself. You just needed time to remember who you are, Claire smiled. A range master. Damn right. They stood there for a moment, looking out at the range, at the targets, the berms, the mountains beyond. Then Claire's radio crackled. Ma'am, students are ready for the 500-meter drill. She started walking toward the firing line, her burgundy vest catching the morning sun, her prosthetic hand swinging naturally at her side. She was home. Stories like Claire Donovan's remind us that losing part of yourself doesn't mean losing who you are. If you believe in honoring those who refuse to quit, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Veterans Past Stories. Thank you for watching.